If you're looking to create, grow, and sustain your wealth, download and subscribe to the Pain Points of Wealth podcast at BeBullish.com with Bob, Ryan, and Chris Payne. It's your podcast for market insights, money tips, and real talk on the economy. Download and subscribe at BeBullish.com.
Halliday presents, in the red corner, the undisputed, undefeated Weed Whacker Guy. Champion of hurling grass and pollen everywhere. And in the blue corner, the challenger, extra strength, Halliday. Eye drops that work all day to prevent the release of histamines that cause itchy allergy eyes. And the winner by knockout is Halliday. Halliday, bring it on.
The Rita Cosby Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. Breaking news.
And tonight on the Rita Cosby Show, well, the first New York City mayoral general election debate has just wrapped up, and it was a doozy. The sad reality is, and I'm curious to hear all of you who hopefully listen to it here on 77 WABC, our home station, of course, of the Rita Cosby Show. Well, I don't think it changed the dynamics of the race, and that really saddens me because that means Mayor Zohran Mamdani. That is the sad reality of what you heard tonight. And unfortunately, I don't think it changed the dynamic in the race. I don't think it changed the momentum in the race. I think there were some interesting moments, but I also thought the moderators let this guy, who I believe is a terrorist sympathizer. If you look at his philosophy and some of the things that this guy has said, they treated him with kid gloves. And I think that was a tremendous, tremendous disservice to New York and to America. First off, of course, the candidates were Zohran Mamdani, the self-described Democratic socialist, who's more of a socialist than a Democratic socialist. Also, Cuomo, former New York governor, and Curtis Sliwa, the founder of the Guardian Angels. Here's a little bit where they were talking about policing and protests.
I understand, I said that. As governor, you put the National Guard on standby during the George Floyd protests. You didn't deploy them. As mayor, talk about how you would balance the right to protest with maintaining order in the streets.
The right to protest is a sacred right. There is no doubt about that. But the law is the law also. And you have New Yorkers now who are afraid in this city. They're afraid of Donald Trump coming, they're afraid of that anarchy, and they're afraid of the anarchy in this city itself. We have to provide public safety that makes New Yorkers feel safe. Demonstration is one thing. Violating the law is something else. Blocking public transit is something else. Stopping students from going to class is something else. Harassment, intimidation, that's a hate crime. That's illegal. Enforce the law. Respect the police. They're not racists, as the assemblyman calls them. They're not a threat to public safety, as he says. They're not anti-queer. They are here to protect New Yorkers, work with them, fortify them.
You know, that's ironic that you say that now,
I'm sorry,
Andrew Cuomo, because when you were governor for 8 years, your parole board released 43 cop killers back into the street. Okay, your father, when he was governor, released none. I knew Mario Cuomo. You know Mario Cuomo, Andrew Cuomo. You released cops. Don't say you're pro-police.
Do you want to respond briefly to the comments that Mr. Cuomo raised about things you've said about police? You can do a brief response to that.
I have been clear time and time again that as much as Andrew Cuomo wants to bring up tweets from 2020, which is around the same time that he was sending seniors to their death in nursing homes, I am looking to work with police officers, not to defund the NYPD, looking to ensure that officers can actually do one job when they're signing up to join that department. Not the many jobs we're asked them to do today.
He was specifically referring to comments you made. We will come back to that, but we're out of time.
They are wicked and corrupt and racist.
We're moving on.
That's what you said. Your words.
We're moving on. Thank you.
It was a disaster. I don't think anybody laid a glove on Zohran Mamdani, and that saddens me because, boy, they needed to if you look at the latest polls. And I think we are about to see the most radical, most terrorist inclined candidate that I have ever seen in my lifetime become the mayor of the biggest city of America. And that saddens me. But I think tonight was not a great night for Curtis Sliwa. I think Andrew Cuomo did better than he did certainly in the primary debates. The problem is, was it enough? I think Curtis had some good lines there. You just heard the line where it was, you're no Mario Cuomo to Governor Cuomo. He didn't spend enough time going after Zohran Mamdani. That's the guy you want to topple. That's the guy you want to get out of the race. He's not going anywhere, but at least bring him down in the polls. Bring down that momentum. I don't know if I saw anything to change that, and that really saddens me, guys, tonight. Here's a little bit more. Here's a little bit more where they're talking about protests and policing, and here's some interesting back and forth with all the candidates.
Okay. Moving on, if history is a guide, National Guard troops in the city could trigger protests, and we have questions for each of you about how you would handle that. So, Mr. Sliwa, you have been arrested for protesting migrant housing and for trying to serve Mayor Bill de Blasio with court papers. How would your NYPD handle protests, and would you continue participating in protests as mayor? You have 1 minute.
Well, I have been arrested oftentimes in civil disobedience. That is a great American right. But demonstrations have a time and a place. And it used to be before Bill de Blasio, I know he was your favorite mayor, Zohran Mamdani, that you'd have to get a permit. There's a time period you were in a structured area. You get a sound permit. It could be turned around in a day. If there was going to be civil disobedience, you discussed it with the police department. And obviously you had an opportunity of expressing your anger or your outrage at whatever it was that motivated you to sit down in the street, to block traffic or block an egress. Now we have rampaging groups that go running through the streets, that enter all kinds of facilities and violate other people's rights. And there's no one who's willing to stop it. When I'm the mayor, there are rules and regulations. Everybody has the right to demonstrate. But you can't violate other people's rights, or you yourself must be arrested. And I would remove the face coverings. Remove those face coverings. Why are you afraid of identifying who you are as a demonstrator, unless maybe you're an agent provocateur who's been sent in here to cause chaos?
Thank you. Rosarina?
The next question goes to you, Mr. Mamdani. You were arrested for blocking traffic in a pro-Palestinian protest, and you participated in a sit-in at Grand Central. Protesters offered blocked streets, bridges, and hubs like Grand Central. How much of that would you allow as mayor, and what's your line in having the NYPD arrest protesters? You have a minute.
Protest is a part of what makes this city's history what it is. It is a part of the First Amendment. We deserve to have a mayor who stands up for that First Amendment, especially as we have a president that's looking to shred it at each and every opportunity. And we will continue to have protests in this city, as we should, no matter who is the mayor. And the line will be on the question of breaking the law. What we have today, however, is an attempt to intimidate so many who are looking to use that freedom of expression to share their opinions about the city and the world around them. And to be frank with you, what New Yorkers are looking for is someone who can show leadership in City Hall. Because when they don't see that leadership, that's when so many take to the streets. And if you had a leader like Andrew Cuomo, who was telling people not to overreact when they see ICE agents abducting girls as young as 6 years old to deport them, many New Yorkers will take to the streets. We deserve to have a leader who will actually be following through on the values of the city. That's the leader that I'll be.
Mr. Mamdani, just a quick follow-up. If you're elected, would you still participate in protests?
No, if I'm elected, I'll be the mayor, and I'll be leading the city from City Hall.
But no participation in protests, right?
The important thing is to lead from City Hall. That's what I'll be doing.
Okay.
Yeah. If I may respond, because I believe my name was invoked.
Yeah. A very brief response, and then I have a question for you.
I dealt with ICE. I stood up with ICE. I had a war with ICE here in New York when I was governor. And I stood them down, and they moved out. What the assemblyman is saying is he doesn't believe in law and order. He believes in defunding the police, disarming the police, disbanding the police. That's who he is. Abolish jails.
Sorry, I have a question for you. 15 seconds.
Very quickly.
Mr. Mamdani, and then we do just 15 seconds because we have a question for Mr. Cuomo.
Mr. Cuomo lies again and again and again. I am not running to defund the police. I am running to actually work with the police to deliver public safety. Andrew Cuomo says that he has stood up to ICE. He has not said a word about the abductions that are happening right now.
He's referring to a previous comment you made, and we will get back to this. But Mr. Cuomo, a question for you.
It's a comment he made. Is the operative language.
That, yes.
Really bad. Now, first off, let's go through what we just heard a little bit there. Mamdani not saying he's not going to be supporting these protests, even if they're, destroying property? Is he going to let them get away with that? Do you want Black Lives Matter protests in every corner of New York City? The quote, Summer in Love. Welcome to the new New York under Zohran Mamdani. And also, the line there where he said, I didn't say defund the police. He did. It's in his own writing. He multiple times said defund the police. He also said open up the jails. It's there in writing, in his own writing, just a few years ago, not when he was 12, just a few years ago, he said it. And also, in addition to all of that, he also said on these protests, I'll be leading from the mayor's office. In other words, he's not saying he's going to tell the protesters to stand down. He may say, keep going. Remember, Kamala Harris funded the Minnesota Freedom Fund that bailed out protesters. This guy sounds like he'll set up his own fund because he fully supports them. He thinks it's all free speech. I guess when you say death to Israel and you burn the American flag, in his mind, those are wonderful, great protests. Welcome to new New York City. And sadly, after tonight, that's what I think is in store for Gotham. And that really saddens me. 1-800-848-9222. 1-800-848-9222. Let's go to Judith in Brooklyn on line 1. Judith, what did you think of the debate?
Thank you, Rita, for taking the call. This was a lackluster debate. Basically, my biggest impression, especially in the beginning for quite a while, I was listening to you and everyone, you were all great, was that this was not a debate. It was a promotional for Mamdani to get away with his BS, lies, and fantasies that were not challenged by the moderators or even the other candidates. It was really, really disgusting. I mean, watching this is ridiculous. Also, Rita, I have to tell you something. And Mamdani, I have to tell you also, he has no experience. Cuomo is right with that, except when you look at his hateful texts and comments, that's for sure. I feel he's like this jihadi wannabe terrorist that he supports the Hamas to this minute, to this day. They executed people over there, and nothing is being said. It's still fine. I mean, they're crazy. And, you know, to defend Curtis a little bit is he brought something up that I thought was great. He said that when he becomes mayor, he will protect the police from immunity. I think it's called qualified immunity and insurance.
Yes, by the way, I thought that was a great point. He's not going to be mayor after tonight. His chance is gone.
Yeah, but Rita, I'm trying to say, but you know what? He did bring that up because guess what? Mamdani is the one that wants to hold and says he's going to hold every single policeman personally accountable. They have no immunity, and no insurance, whatever. And he's going to protect the crazies versus the police. That's why a lot of police are not signing up because they're not being protected.
Judith, he's going to do another layer that they talked about tonight. And I think you're hitting a great point. The other thing he's going to do, and he repeated it again tonight, that he will take the power of oversight, disciplining cops. Not only, like you just said, the qualified immunity issue, but he will take also the oversight of disciplining, which has always been in the hands of the New York Police Commissioner, which is why you want someone who's, usually somebody who's risen through the ranks, who really appreciates the men and women in blue and understands what they go through and how tough their job is and how dangerous our police, their job is every day. They don't know if they're going to come home to their loved ones. We got to pray for our men and women in blue. And he wants to take that oversight and give it to what's called the Civilian Review Board, which is a Civilian Complaint Review Board is a bunch of mini Mamdanis. In other words, officer so-and-so, there's a shooting, even if the guy's lunging at him with a knife, how do you think Minnie Mamdani is going to judge that cop? I bet you he's going to say, sorry, you were in the wrong, Mr. Officer. What? The officer is supposed to, get stabbed? I mean, I'm just being, every cop out there listening to this show, and I know we have a lot of them because we love you here on the Rita Cosby Show. Mamdani is already setting the police officers to fail. And that's scary on every direction. And you're right. I thought, by the way, by Curtis bringing that up, I did think that was a very good point on Curtis's end. Your thoughts, Judith?
Thank you. Yes, absolutely. I also want to point out, did you hear Judge Weinberg, who I think should be a moderator besides you and Dominic, because you're great. Judge Weinberg, as a judge who knows the Constitution and laws, did you see what he said as mayor? Mayor has the right to appoint judges, the right to appoint this, that, and the other. This is very scary, a lot of power for the mayor. So I'm practicing Governor Elise Stefanik over and over. Governor Elise Stefanik.
Oh, you know what?
Boy. You know what, Rita, to be fair, Governor, when Cuomo was governor, he banned BDS, okay? What's his name? Mamdani, this thug, this jihadi, he has supported BDS, also head of SJP, as you were saying before. He is a very dangerous dude. But Cuomo actually banned the BDS, which is something they try to destroy the economy of Israel any which way they could.
And by the way, yeah, Cuomo has been a big supporter of Israel, to his credit. And banned, the group that has said basically boycott, divest Israel, the BDS group, which is, you're right, a great point. And yet Mamdani tonight was able to sort of dance and sing, Judith, and do his whole globalize the Intifada line. And that's why these moderators tonight, they were terrible. And I want to hear what you guys think about that, because I thought the media tonight did a great disservice to New York. They let Mamdani do his little canned answers on globalize the Intifada, do this, do that, lines we've heard over and over again, as opposed to saying, excuse me, yes or no. Yes or no. They didn't even go back at him when he didn't say that he thinks Israel should be a state. I mean, he's already said, the other day when he was asked over and over again, should Hamas disarm? He couldn't call for them to disarm. He tried to get a little more clarity tonight because he was so embarrassed. But this guy will be a danger to New York and a danger to America. And tonight, the other candidates, and especially the moderators, did New York not a service in any shape or form. 1-800-848-9222.
The Rita Cosby Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. If you're looking to create, grow, and sustain your wealth, download and subscribe to the Pain Points of Wealth podcast at BeBullish.com with Bob, Ryan, and Chris Payne. It's your podcast for market insights, money tips, and real talk on the economy. Download and subscribe at BeBullish.com.
This episode is brought to you by Battlefield 6. Battlefield 6 is the ultimate all-out warfare experience. Rip through the skies in aerial dogfights. Demolish your surroundings for a strategic advantage. Harness complete control over every action and movement using the kinesthetic combat system. Drop into multiplayer with your squad, or fight furiously as a member of the Dagger 1-3 squad in a gritty, adrenaline-fueled single-player campaign where you'll defend a world on the edge of collapse.
It's the Rita Cosby Show.
Oh, what a night. It was the debate night, but did it change the dynamics in the race? Sadly, I don't think so. Get used to saying Mayor Zohran Mamdani. Let's go to Joe in Pomona on line 2. Go ahead, Joe. Your thoughts tonight.
Hey, Rita. How are you?
Good. What do you think?
Listen, Mayor Momo is coming. And so, but I listen, this rests at the feet of the Republican Party.
And why is that? Joe, hold on a second, because I actually wanted to hear the rest of what you had to say. Stick with us, Joe. We're going to talk with you after the break. Stay with us.
The Rita Cosby Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
You know the words dominating today's headlines.
Private equity,
generative capital gains tax,
America's
chip war by market volatility.
On Fed rate cuts are
But do you understand how they impact your world and your wallet? In a world that skims the what, understand the why. Because context changes everything. Subscribe at Bloomberg.com.
Running a business comes with a lot of what-ifs. But luckily, there's a simple answer to them. Shopify. It's the commerce platform behind millions of businesses, including Thrive Cosmetics and Momofuku. And it'll help you with everything you need. From website design and marketing to boosting sales and expanding operations, Shopify can get the job done and make your dream a reality. Turn those what-ifs into... Sign up for your $1 per month trial at shopify.com/special offer.
¿Hablas español?
Sprichst du Deutsch?
Kann du Norsk?
If you used Babbel, you would. Babbel's conversation-based techniques teaches you useful words and phrases to get you speaking quickly about the things you actually talk about in the real world, with lessons handcrafted by over 200 language experts and voiced by real native speakers. Babbel is like having a private tutor in your pocket. Start speaking with Babbel today. Get up to 55% off your Babbel subscription right now at babbel.com/Spotify. Spelled BABBEL.com/Spotify. Rules and restrictions may apply.
Mint is still $15 a month for premium wireless. And if you haven't made the switch yet, here are 15 reasons why you should. 1, it's $15 a month. 2, seriously, it's $15 a month. 3, no big contrast. 4, I use it. 5, my mom uses it. Are you playing me off? That's what's happening, right? Okay, give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, $15 per month equivalent required. New customer offer first 3 months only. Then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.
Rita Cosby is on. The Rita Cosby Show presents Back the Blue.
And this Back the Blue segment coming from Apache Junction, Arizona, where police officers rescued a man from fast-moving waters as catastrophic flooding hit the area. The police officers and emergency crews rushed to the scene to rescue the man after they got a 911 call. The man was told to hold onto a rope that they sent in and to hold tight due to the power of the rushing water. After securing the rope, the officer then made his way through the water and approached the vehicle, got him out of the vehicle, and they were able to bring him back to dry ground. Thankfully, the man was evaluated by EMS crews and was not injured. And literally, they pulled him out in the nick of time. Water was already midway through the windshield of his vehicle, and certainly he would have been in a very, very difficult situation. It would have been a different outcome if it was not for the great men and women in blue. Well, we're talking, of course, about the big debate tonight, the New York City mayoral general election debate. It was the first one, but probably the most important debate. And I think this candidate, sadly, Zohran Mamdani, and I hate to say this, guys, but I'm always honest with you, I feel like he is on his way to Gracie Mansion after tonight. There was no knockout punch. There was nothing that I think changed the trajectory of the race. And I think the other candidates did not do anything to really lay a glove on him. I thought Cuomo had some good points against him, and I thought did much better than he did in the primary debate. But was it enough to change anything? Nope. And Zohran Mamdani just smiled. And the moderators didn't really lay a glove on him either. They didn't really grill him. They didn't do follow-up questions. It was really pathetic. 1-800-848-9222. Let's go back to Joe in Pomona. Joe, I'm sorry we had a hard break, but go ahead and pick up where you left off. You were saying that somebody did a disservice tonight.
Yeah, I mean, your analysis, you and your team were absolutely on point. But this is laid clearly at the feet of the Republican Party, and I'll explain why. People have had enough of Andrew Cuomo. He has proven himself year after year to be little more than a bully. He started when his father was the governor. Had a horrible, horrible reputation, wrecked nearly single-handedly the housing market as the head of HUD. Just a horrible record. So people see through his rhetoric and they don't want him, which presented a wonderful opportunity for the Republican Party. However, they, as nice as Curtis Sliwa is as a person, he's barely qualified to be police commissioner, let alone mayor of the city. He's not regarded as a serious candidate, and I'm giving him every benefit of the doubt. And he was just totally outmatched tonight. Whether he was wearing a beret or not, honestly, he had no business being on that stage, in my opinion, at such a critical time. And I'm going to remind the audience that you know, we hear a lot about Israel and the Palestinians and the climate in New York City, and I just want to remind everybody that this is way beyond the Israeli conflict. What is happening in New York will have a rippling effect, and is having a rippling effect across the country. And whether it's a Republican or a moderate Democrat, they need to get smart and seize the opportunity to lead once again. Stop the rhetoric, stop the nonsense, and put up genuine candidates that could have destroyed Momo on the stage.
Well, and Joe,
tonight.
That's exactly what President Trump said the other day. President Trump said, and these are his words, he said, this guy, if he gets elected, it's a fluke because the candidates against him, in Trump's words, are flawed. That's what he said. And if there was a Rudy Giuliani, you think about Rudy Giuliani in his heyday, if Rudy Giuliani in his heyday, or even Rudy Giuliani today was running, it would be a different race, right, Joe?
Absolutely. I mean, you put Ed Koch in there. Ed Koch would have made mincemeat of Zohran.
Joe, I personally, as someone who has moderated debates, I would have loved to have had 5 minutes debating with Mamdani. You give me 5 minutes with that guy, it would have been a different debate. And that's why I would have, too. I would have helped the other candidates to at least have them at least create an opportunity where there would have been a lot of good back and forth. Whereas sometimes, which is where you get the candidate off his game. And I would have interrupted him and said, you know what, you're not answering the question. Because tonight it was also difficult for Cuomo and for Curtis, because Curtis at one point said, I'm being marginalized. And he was absolutely correct. He was being marginalized. It was almost like the other candidates didn't even think of him in the race. He is obviously a distant third, but they didn't even think of him in the race. And the moderators didn't seem to take him seriously. And that's a shame, too, because I think they didn't give him enough credit for being the third candidate. There were 3 people there, and they seemed to be favoring Mamdani. And the first question that was sort of had a little bit of an edge to it was definitely against Cuomo. They went right for Cuomo at the beginning. And you've got Zohran Mamdani, who, as we just talked about, and let's just call it what it is, Joe. The choice for New York, and it will have rippling effects across America, is do you want someone who, and I'm being nice, is in my mind, a terrorist sympathizer? I heard nothing tonight that makes me think that this man won't arrest Netanyahu, that doesn't praise Hamas, that won't allow streets to have Black Lives Matter, breaking into stores and whatever else. I heard nothing tonight. If not anything, I am even more confirmed that this is the man that is probably going to be the next mayor of New York. And those 2 people on the stage tonight, to me, I am furious because there is so much at stake. And they should have gone after Mamdani tooth and nail, and they should have forced the moderators to also go after him tooth and nail. And they didn't do it. They tried a little bit. I thought Cuomo showed, obviously, clearly he had experience, which he certainly does, obviously, as the former governor. But then Curtis spent most of his time going after Cuomo and barely did anything on Mamdani, and he barely got a punch in on Cuomo. And then Cuomo got a few in on Mamdani. I mean, he looked like the more experienced guy on the stage, but yet Mamdani got to smile with his little smile and talk about globalize the intifada and say some people find it offensive. And he talked in circles with his canned answers, and he was allowed to do it. Joe, New York City lost tonight, and America is going to lose, sadly, on 11-4. Go ahead.
Mamdani ran the table tonight, but just to give you how inept he will be as a leader. Let's go back to this fantasy he has of arresting somebody with the head of a nation with diplomatic immunity. He'll cause an international uproar, and on top of that, will probably wind up himself in federal court. I mean, this guy thinks he has power that, as mayor, that he simply doesn't have, and that's the fact that nobody's pushing back is also pretty telling to me.
Yep.
That the media's in the tank for this guy.
Yep.
Everybody seems to be in the tank for this guy.
Joe, did you hear the point tonight, Joe? There was one point that it was like he was talking about how I think it was a pastor, he said, that sort of like shepherded this person out, out from the courtroom, and how these things are happening, that people could be arrested, like ICE is just plunging people off the street for no reason. And kind of, was saying how somebody was sort of aiding and abetting, right? Skirting people outside the courtroom. And he seemed to think that was just fine. I mean, welcome to lawlessness in New York.
No, he's going to make a medal for that. He's going to give people an award for obstruction and for aiding and abetting. That'll be something new. He'll make a council to do that.
Yeah, you're right. He'll be the aiding and abetting mayor. I mean that, and boy, is that dangerous for New York. Joe, thank you very, very much. And everybody, I want to play this part since we're talking about lawlessness. The moderator asked the question, essentially, at what point do you send a social worker? At what point do you look at safety violence? How do you decide if you're going to send a mental health worker or the police, especially if it's like a domestic violence call? And listen to this exchange with the candidates. This is Mamdani, Cuomo, and Curtis Sliwa.
How will you determine whether there is a concern for safety or violence? What is the line between the calls in which police will be dispatched and the calls to which social workers will be dispatched?
The line is also going to be one focused on violence and the threat of violence. And I also trust the operators who will be receiving those calls to make that determination, as they do every day today for so many emergency services.
And just two really quick points, please. There has been a lot of discussion that you would send social workers to domestic violence calls, which police are concerned about. So you're saying no. Okay. And then the other question is, how can you be sure that a situation that does not sound violent when someone calls 911 does not become violent in the moment? Would police be assigned as backup?
I think what you do is you actually follow the experts that have shown us this can work when you're willing to ensure that you're trusting the mental health experts who have been doing this work elsewhere in the country, where they call for the police when they need the police, but their initial impulse when there's no violence in that call is to actually address the mental health at the heart of it.
Okay, Mr. Sliwa, you have encountered plenty.
Wow. That is wild. And you could hear he was like, well, I'm going to trust the operator. I'm going to have the operator decide. Can you imagine you're an operator? Oh, that doesn't sound so bad. Oh, there's just a mother and her son squabbling or something like that. Well, guess what? That is the exact scenario when officers Mora and Rivera answered to a domestic violence call that involved the mother and also the son. And remember, they went to the house. And the mother said, yeah, my son is acting up. He's had a history of mental issues, blah, blah, blah. Thank goodness, sadly, they sent two officers. I can't imagine if they had sent a social worker. But sadly, what happened in this case was the son opened fire on those two heroic officers, killing both of them. So you never know when a situation, especially if it's a domestic violence or you're dealing with somebody with mental instability of all times, that's the time you really need a police officer. And Zohran Mamdani, as you guys just heard, said, well, no, I'd send a social worker. How many dead social workers, sadly, will we have under Zohran Mamdani's philosophy? To me, that is downright dangerous. Wow, wow, wow. Let's go to Jacqueline in Brooklyn. Line 1. Go ahead, Jacqueline.
Hey, Rita. I think the only person that saw the same interview that I did tonight was Judith, because I see things a little differently. Cuomo basically was asleep most of the time. They asked him questions, and he was like, what did you ask? Not once, several times. And when he did say something, all he did was repeat the same old from everything that he's done in the past. He never addressed any of the issues, namely that it cost the taxpayers of New York City $60 million to cover all of the sexual lawsuits that were brought against him.
Yeah, by the way, I thought that was a very. Hold on, Jacqueline. I'll let you finish. I agree with you that I thought that was a very powerful point. I don't think there were any winners tonight. I think the only loser is New York City. Your thoughts?
Well, the communist basically told everyone what he's been saying right along. You have to listen to what he's saying, because he's going to do everything in his power to complete his agenda.
I agree.
And I have to say, with an extremely biased two-hour interview, I'm not going to refer to it as a debate because it wasn't. It was only a debate between the communist and Cuomo. Curtis was, I think, the best he could be in taking his 15 minutes out of the entire 2 hours.
I disagree. Jacqueline, you got to be honest with yourself. I disagree, and here's the reason why. Here's why I disagree, and I'm just telling you. Curtis, I think, is a good debater. I mean, I've known Curtis for years. I think he should have really taken it to Mamdani because he could have. I actually think he had the ability to do some big knockout punches, and I didn't see it.
He can't counter anything if he's continuously interrupted by every single one of those individuals.
Oh, yes, you can. Jacqueline, I keep bringing this up, the Newt Gingrich analogy. And that's where you have to be bold. And it is tough. So I do give you that. You got to be that. But I think Curtis knew that going in. I mean, I was a little surprised how in the tank they were for Mamdani. I actually thought the media would have been a little bit better, more balanced. And I did think they did a tremendous disservice to Curtis, no doubt. I agree with you on that. But Curtis should have taken control of the situation and looked at the moderators and said, he at one point said, I'm being marginalized. What he should have said is, you know what? There are 3 people here, and you're not even pressing him to do a yes or no answer. I'm asking you, do your job. Shame the media, because you know what? You have nothing to lose and everything to gain. And guess what happened tonight? New York City lost because the competition against Mamdani did not step up enough, Jacqueline. And guess what? A lot of people will only watch this first debate, and that means we're going to be stuck with a communist socialist in this city.
Well, I think you have the lamestream media to thank for that. And 95% of those questions were posed to both the communist and Cuomo.
I agree, and that's why you break through. That's why you got to break through. They did the same thing to Newt Gingrich, and he turned it around masterfully.
To win this election. That is obvious. When people continue to say, well, Cuomo has the best chance of winning. And personally, I want to thank every single person who is supporting Cuomo for giving us a communist mayor, because they're the ones that are talking like he's the best thing since sliced bread. He was half dead, and he looked dead during this entire interview. That's my take on it.
By the way, I agree. He should have done a better job, too. That's why I'm saying to you, to me, I think the competition against Mamdani, I think both of them should have been much stronger and really gone after Mamdani, because the media didn't do their job. And that's when they are not the ones running for office. The other 2 on the stage are, and they really should have taken it to Mamdani. And it wasn't enough, especially in a race where somebody has such a huge lead and where that person who has the huge lead is, I believe, a clear and present danger to New York and to America. The stakes are too high. You can't play it safe. You got to play for keeps. And they did not play for keeps. Neither one of them Neither one of them, Jacqueline. And that's a great disservice, sadly, to New York. And that's why I say, sadly, tonight, we are going to have Mayor Mamdani. After what I saw tonight, barring any major surprise, sadly. And I'm not going to rosy it because our city is worth saving. And guess what? We lost it tonight. That's the reality. We're going to take calls after the break.
The Rita Cosby Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
This episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. Psst, healthcare pros, word's out, and it's too good to keep quiet. Look, LinkedIn is revolutionizing job hunting, making it possible to search by specialty, shift preference, and salary. Endless scrolling is out. Whether it's a mental health therapist or dental hygienist, finding the perfect role is faster and easier than ever. Head to linkedin.com/healthcare and start your search today.
This is a real good story about Bronx and his dad, Ryan, real United Airlines customers.
We were returning home, and one of the flight attendants asked Bronx if he wanted to see the flight deck and meet Captain Andrew.
I got to sit in the driver's seat.
I grew up in an aviation family, and seeing Bronx kind of reminded me of myself when I was that age.
That's Andrew, a real United pilot.
These small interactions can shape a kid's future.
It felt like I was the captain.
Allowing my son to see the flight deck will stick with us forever.
That's how good leads the way.
This is the Rita Cosby Show.
And let's go to line 3. Stan, I don't know if you were watching and listening to the debate. Where is this headed, Stan?
Rita, you and I are on the same page, baby. All the way. Its race is over. Done. Finished. I agree with you 1,000%. It is over. The next mayor of the city of New York will be Mamdani. And why? Because Cuomo and Sliwa couldn't touch this guy. I mean, you were right. They didn't respond. I thought they would open their mouth. They did not. Absolutely. And Mamdani, to his crazy credit, bypassed Sliwa, ignored him, which he was supposed to do, and just went right for
Cuomo.
Governor Cuomo.
Yep, he pretended like Sliwa was not even there.
And you know what?
And the media, the moderators, I thought, didn't interrupt Mamdani. I have to ask you a question, Sam. We just have about a minute. You're Jewish, right?
Correct.
All right. So how do you feel about a guy who clearly has, I think, Hamas sympathy?
Well, I can't, Rita, I can't stand this guy. I mean, here's the point. Jews now, first of all, he has to get out, Sliwa, tonight. And Mayor Adams has to come out and so forth. Between now and next week, when somebody has to go, and it's got to be Sliwa. You said that he can't win. So the Jews have to come out in massive force. But 20% of them are going to vote for this maniac.
But if the other 80 get out, and by the way, you know what? If Curtis had delivered a knockout punch, I'm one of those people who doesn't believe in telling somebody to drop out. But there was no change in the dynamic. And boy, if New York has this guy, New York's in trouble. I'm talking about Mamdani.
Thanks for listening to The Rita Cosby Show. You can hear The Rita Cosby Show weeknights at 10 on 77 WABC. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?
If you're looking to create, grow, and sustain your wealth, download and subscribe to the Pain Points of Wealth podcast at BeBullish.com with Bob, Ryan, and Chris Payne. It's your podcast for market insights, money tips, and real talk on the economy. Download and subscribe at BeBullish.com.